everybody to CSE's Green Table Talks, where we are proud today to come to you with our Voters Edition. We're proud to have my aunt, Evelyn Shaw, former high school social studies teacher, here in the space with us today. She's going to answer some very important questions as it relates to voting. And I'm also pleased as punch to have two of my favorites here in the space with us. I've got Sande Bailey-Gwinnm and Dr. Rhonda Anderson in the space. So ladies, go ahead and introduce yourselves and say hello to the folks.
I'm Dr. Rhonda Anderson, Director of Curriculum and Program Planning for Community Sustainability Enterprise.
Sande Bailey-Gwinnm, Minister of 20 years. I'm the Executive Director of Foundations for Living, where we bring strength, transformations to students, families, and in the community, also in the country of the community, where we love everybody.
Awesome.
I'm Evelyn Shaw, retired social studies teacher and aunt of Deirdre Cox.
And welcome. And I'm Deirdre Cox, President and founder of Community Sustainability Enterprise, where we build thriving, sustainable people of color and inclusive communities. And we're proud to bring you Bridging the Generation Gap at the polls. We represent multiple generations here. And I'd like to start this conversation off by just asking a question. If you ladies could give us a brief answer, what impact did voting have on you and your families growing up? Auntie?
Okay, well, we had Democrats and Republicans in the family, so we knew about both parties. And my parents always voted. My grandmother always voted. So everybody that we were close to always voted.
And that's where it's in the bloodline. And for that, I'm grateful. So thank you for passing that baton, Auntie. Sande?
For me, being in the rural South of a state of Georgia, my mom, they really didn't talk too much about it. I knew they voted. But as for me, I didn't start talking about it until my mid-20s.
Dr. Rhonda?
My experience was the same as Sandy's. Growing up, I knew my family, they voted, but we never did have like solid conversations about who was being elected on the local state. I knew about the presidency because it was very much so televised, but didn't have those conversations until I was in my 20s.
Okay, very good. So here's another question. How did you all introduce voting to your children? How did you pass that baton? Sande?
For me, Deidre, my 21-year-old started talking to me about it. Being in college, that was kind of the buzzword after, everybody had partied. But that was something that she would bring home to me. And plus my papa, which is my dad, he always watched Fox, CNN. So when you go in the house, you're going to talk about those particular topics in my house.
Very good. Rhonda, your three boys, how did you introduce them?
Well, it's conversation for us around our dinner table. My husband, he finds it very important to vote at all levels and to vote so that you understand what's going on within your community and to make change when you want change. So it was always a topic of conversation at our dinner tables whenever there were local elections, presidential elections. He would ask the boys questions about what do they know about the candidates, ask them what they've seen on TV. And then he'll give his spiel about, well, you really shouldn't like that person because, so that's how we did it. It was a conversation for our boys ever since they were small. It was not a hard thing to get them to vote. They knew it. 18, let's go vote, so.
And that was the way it was with my kids. And again, because you heard my aunt talk about the deep pool of voters in our family. So my kids went to the poll with me all the time. So when Angel turned 18, she was tickled as punch. We went and voted together and rocked our voted signs on our foreheads. So let's get this third question out here. So what do you tell young people and their families who have never voted? What do you say to them?
That's good. I think right now, because of so many political issues that need to be discussed, everybody is without an issue, if that makes sense. You somewhere in your family, you are tagged to some type of question or discussion. So open up a discussion about voting. It should not be hard this season. It should not be hard at all.
Auntie, what do you think? What would you say to somebody?
I always would say to my students, people died so we could have the right to vote. And whether you like the person or not, even if it means that you have to leave one office blank, you need to vote because it's not a right to be taken for granted, especially among people of color.
Excellent.
For us, James and I, we always tell people, we've had conversations with people, if you don't stand for something, you'll fall for anything and be subjected to the outcomes because you did not vote, and now I think more people are, as we say, quote unquote, woke. people are really seeing things now for what they are. And, we've had that conversation that you have to stand up for your rights. It's your right. Don't let it die because someone else has told you your vote doesn't matter. It matters. So
I concur with everything that all three of you have said. So I'm definitely an advocate of everything that you spoke about. So this last question, I want to ask this question of Auntie and of Sande Bailey, Reverend Sande Bailey. How can exercising our right to vote as African Americans help bridge the wealth and capability gap that exists between whites and blacks in this country? Auntie, we'll start with you.
Well, what the right to vote is a responsibility, and it brings with it certain obligations that you have to the community. And as more people, as you see more and more people running for office and getting elected to office that seemingly are coming out of your socioeconomic group, then this makes you realize that you can do the same thing, or that you at the least can get a decent job because this person has done that. And those are things that people, they have to see. Some people have to see someone else experiencing something before they realize they can do it. Now, I can be a member of the Board of Education. I can do this. I can go to college. I can major in this, that, and the other. But it's the idea of, I guess you would call them role models, that these people going to vote, people that lining up at the polls going to vote, these are role models. Mm-hmm. They may not even realize it, but they are role models.
Can't hear you.
Sorry about that, y'all. I think Sande may have had some technical difficulties. So I'm going to ask Rhonda. So Rhonda, what are your thoughts on that question?
I really do think communication, allowing our voices to be heard in our communities, because you can tell the difference even in this present day, where people's voices have not been heard, right? So I can tell the difference from Lithonia to Roswell. Very easy, right? But what is the difference? It's because people went to those town hall meetings to communicate what they want for their community and what they will not allow. I'm sure on any given day in a town hall for your county, city, whatever, it's not well attended. So our voices just have not been heard. And I think that we need to show up more, in those areas to make those gaps kind of, bridge them a little bit more, because that's what it is. If Roswell says, we want to get rid of this plaza, guess what? They're going to get rid of this plaza and build a new one. I've been seeing it happen all along Holcomb Bridge Road, right? Because they're communicating what they see. We want more businesses to come. In these other areas, I just don't think it happens because we don't place it at the top of our list, because we've already put in our heads that, they're not going to listen. But I beg to differ. I think that if enough of us show up, that'll help bridge those gaps.
I completely agree. And I think now is the time, because there's a lot of doors that are being opened for us. Yeah. As people, and there's a lot of seats being made, ways being made for us, and we have to show up and let our voices be heard. Sande, we were just talking about that last question. How can exercising our right to vote as African Americans help bridge the wealth and capability gap? And you had a great response to that earlier. And you're on mute, sis.
Like I said before, when you deal with people that are HIV positive, LGBT community, domestic violence, you have to find your way of being educated, because the local elections, your district attorney, your school board, your city councilman, they have the information for the area that you live in. So if you don't vote and educate yourself, you may be in front of a judge or the district attorney. If that attorney does not view or see your way, you may just end up in jail. Or at the school board, if you feel that you need to have sex education placed in the school board, how progressive is your school board? So applied knowledge is power. That's my answer to that. Applied knowledge.
And that's what we talk about all the time, is that capability, self-efficacy comes from becoming capable. You learn the information and then you apply it, and then you develop self-efficacy. So absolutely. So Auntie, we're getting ready to transition, and we're going to talk a bit more about some of the political aspects that we need to be knowledgeable of. And I'm going to turn this over to each of us. So each of us will take a series of questions. So I believe, Dr. Rhonda, you're going to take the first round?
That's correct. So, hey, Auntie, once again, it's a pleasure and an honor to have you here. And I thoroughly enjoyed our time together. So the first question is, what is the Electoral College and why does it matter?
Okay, the Electoral College is the group of certified electors. There should be like 530 of them, because it takes 270 to get elected. It's the total number of representatives and senators that we have. And they are the people who actually cast the vote for president and vice president. We go to the polls and make our wishes known. That's the popular vote. And what is supposed to happen, according to the Constitution, whichever candidate gets the most popular votes gets all, or the majority of the popular votes, gets all of the electoral votes. The Electoral College is supposed to be winner take all. But I've been hearing things in the news lately about you can pull an elector from down in here, an elector from there. So apparently, somehow, without amending the Constitution, they have been splitting electoral votes.
Wow, so that's why getting out and voting is very important on our level, right? Because if the candidate that we want is really winning, then it's a solid, like, hands down, right? Is that a way to say that? Like, it's a solid win for that candidate who's really, really winning if there's a large margin?
But wait a minute, let me ask Dee Dee, can I talk about rogue electors? Even though it's 2 or 3 questions down, can I talk about that right now? Because, there's also such a thing as rogue electors.
Okay.
Like, everybody is supposed to cast their votes. All those electors are supposed to cast their votes for whoever got the most popular votes. But now apparently it's allowable, or they wouldn't be mentioning it. Rogue electors, that those electors who refuse to vote with the majority, and they'll vote for someone else. And none of that is provided for in the Constitution.
Wow. Okay. So what is the popular vote?
The popular vote is when we go to the polls and cast our vote. In other words, what the people want. And they're supposed to take whoever got the majority of those votes. The Electoral College is supposed to cast all of its votes for that person according to the Constitution, Article 1. Not Article 3, I'm sorry. Article 2.
Okay. So what is constitutional law, and what is an easy way to learn about it as a young adult or someone who has never voted before?
Constitutional law is simply knowing your rights, knowing where the local laws and the Constitution all come together for you. Constitutional law. And it's a good thing to know. It's a good thing to know the Constitution, because sometimes communities are prone to do things, especially city councils, that they have their friends that have elected them, and they're the good old boys and all of this. They could be prone to do something unconstitutional. And it's up to the citizens to keep them in check.
Okay, y'all heard that. How do I find my polling place?
Okay, you can call your board of elections, your local board of elections, or you can go online and go to the Board of Elections website and then type in your address, and it'll tell you where your polling place is.
Okay.
Awesome. All right. And Miss Bailey, Minister Bailey, I think you're going to take this next set of questions.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. What do I need to have as a registered? If I need to vote, what do I need to have in my hand to vote exactly and correctly as a registered voter?
You're supposed to have 2 pieces of ID, but I've noticed sometimes now they'll take 1. Usually a valid driver's license is good. And you could even take sometimes they don't want to see your voting card. One time they were rejecting voting cards. I don't know why that was, but you should make sure that you have at least 2 pieces of ID.
Let's see. The second question I have: how do I learn about the candidates and their political agendas and values and not be swayed by television and radio ads?
You can pull them up online and look at them. Or you can go when they're having their rallies and go to some of the rallies if it's a candidate that you're interested in, and you really are interested in this person, and look and see when he's having a rally and go there and listen and see if this is someone that really holds your beliefs, basically basically espouses your beliefs, because you're not going to find anyone probably who's 100% with what you agree with,
So there are some fake news out there. You just need to be able to decipher what's real.
And don't let perfect be the enemy of the good.
Got you. What are the 5 things I need to know before going to the polls or sending my ballot in?
Let me see, what did I put down there? First of all, you need to know where the polling place is. If you're going to send it in, you need to know where to mail it to, whatever. You need to know who's on the ballot, and the candidates' philosophy and the affiliations of those candidates, like what political party. If it's a referendum, then you need to know what law it is that's being changed or whatever, and what that change is going to mean. So you're going to want to look that up too, and you need to know if a voter ID is required, and if so, to what extent, because there are some states that require a voter ID, a driver's license, and something else. Some of them want more than one piece of ID, and you need to know that before you get to the polls, and then can't vote. And by the time you get back, they're closed. So you need to know that, make sure that if you have moved and you haven't reported it to the Board of Elections, then you know you're supposed to go back to where you voted last time. Or you won't get the vote because you're going to go to this new place and they don't know who you are. So if you've moved and haven't changed your address, be sure you go back to the polling place where you voted last time.
That's good, Auntie. What voting rights do felons have?
To my knowledge, none. At one time, I can remember a time when they used to allow prisoners to vote. They would go into the prisons and let them vote, and they stopped them from voting, because you really, I wouldn't think you give up your entire citizenship just because you're in prison. But now what is supposed to be is that once you have cleared your probation, and if you haven't committed any other crime, then you can vote. But if your crime had anything to do with elections, from what I've been reading, you can't ever vote again.
That's good. Last one. Can I obtain a sample ballot?
Yeah, you should be able to get one from the Board of Elections. Or you also should be able to go on their website and find one. And you should be able to print it out.
Auntie, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Auntie, you are killing the game. We love having you in the space. So we've got our last few questions, and you ladies are doing an amazing job. So last set of questions, Auntie. So what if I don't agree with the candidates? I don't agree with anything that anybody's talking about.
All I can say is don't let the perfect be the enemy of the good.
Because to your point, people died for us to have this right to vote.
Yeah, have that right to vote, but there must be something you could pick out about somebody. Mm-hmm. You know, well, maybe, because sometimes I've gone to the polls and didn't even know didn't even know who the people were. And then I keep on looking at their names, and then I would say, well, maybe I'll vote for this one. And then I would remember something that maybe I had seen about one of them, and I say, but I will never leave anything blank. And if it's I don't know any of them, and one of them's a woman, I'll vote for the woman, something like that. So I guess you call that prejudicial voting.
which leads us to this point, right? Mm-hmm. So let's say I've never voted before, and I now realize that it's so important for me. I recognize that people died for me to have this right. I mean, John Lewis died. T. Vivian.
He died from cancer. Okay, go ahead.
But again, he didn't die from that. You're exactly right. But he got beat down and he experienced. Yes, you're exactly right.
Oh, he did experience a lot. Yeah, he did. He took a whipping. Yeah.
So where and when should I get involved in local politics? If I've completely missed the boat to vote in this national election, when should I get involved in local politics?
At whose age?
So if I'm 35 years old and I've never voted before, and this is my first experience and I missed this election, when do you suggest I get involved?
Start off going to city council meetings.
Okay.
And stick around after the meeting and introduce yourself and shake hands with people. And this will get you known in the political world. And then they'll get you to know some politicians, and you just might end up running for something. And I'll come down and be your campaign manager.
Well, that won't be me, because But you know what? We want to have you back in this space later, Auntie, because we need to talk to our young people about how to have this conversation. So when they start going to city hall meetings, what's that level of conversation look like? Because you know there's a whole set of vocabulary required wherever you go in life. And we got to have that political, that glossary of terms readily available. So we want to have you back in the space. So
When
let's
we
get
were
to,
in high school, our civics teacher required us to attend at least one city council meeting a semester.
oh, nice. Okay.
That was a long time ago.
I think that's something that we can start doing with our young people, Rhonda and Sandy, Minister Bailey, just taking our kids to city hall meetings. And you do that a lot anyway, Sandy. So let's get to these last two questions, Auntie. So let's talk about the Supreme Court. How do Supreme Court decisions impact a person's daily life?
Okay, well, just like with Roe v. Wade, well, when it was passed, I think it was 1973, when Roe v. Wade was passed and decided, and that meant that women could have safe abortions because they couldn't have safe abortions before then. And it's like Roe v. Wade is coming up again, and that means that there's probably going to be a problem. Uh, because they are trying, and also the big thing is that Obamacare, I think, is coming up. That's why they're trying to get that lady confirmed as soon as they can, because she is basically ultra conservative as far as they know. But you know, this last little guy, the one, what's his name? I think his name's Kavanaugh, the one that was crying, talking about, I like beer, you like beer. And it's coming yeah, after Trump went through all that to get him on the court, he voted against one of those things that Trump had went to the Supreme Court on Trump's behalf. I can't remember which one it was now, but that took that law down.
Mm-hmm.
And that's another thing, you know. Eisenhower hated Earl. He died hating Earl Warren. Earl Warren was Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, and Eisenhower had, I'm letting you know how old I am. Eisenhower had appointed him, and he voted for Brown versus Board of Education. Eisenhower was so mad. I'm sure if he could have gotten one of those army tanks, he would have run that man down.
You just made it very clear how the Supreme Court decisions definitely impact our daily lives. And let's ask this last question, Auntie. How can I align my values with my vote?
Well, that depends on what your values are and what the issue is, because you know all votes are not people.
Mm-hmm.
You know, votes are issues as well. Sometimes, you know, you have the tax levies and all that, or shall we build this new building over here? You know, there's usually a school bond issue. Anytime they get ready to build a new school, you got to go out and vote. And you know, at one time, anytime, I know it was like that in Sedalia, if they were voting on anything where you had to pay a property tax, you know, it was going to be a part of your property tax. If you didn't own property, you couldn't vote on that issue because everybody else is going to be experiencing higher taxes and you don't have anything to be taxed.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't remember when. All I know, and I think I may have been in college because I don't remember them changing that while I was growing up in Sedalia.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay. So aligning your values. And to your point also, when we're learning about the candidates, identifying what their values are and aligning, looking at what's important to us, whether it be abortion versus not having, you know, not making abortion legal, that kind of thing. So aligning our values with our votes. So you
put on your lawyer cap, because half of the questions, the answers that they're going to give you are lies.
Okay, there you have it. Okay.
Lawyer's cap.
And there we have it. So we have officially reached the end of our time here with Miss Evelyn Shaw, with Minister Sande Bailey and Dr. Rhonda Anderson. Ladies, what parting words do you have for the good? Because we want folks to go out and rock their vote. So what final words do you have to say? 5 seconds or less.
I would say for me, as you said, people died that we may have this right. If you don't like the candidate, still go vote for somebody because you voted for the generation after you.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. There you go. Auntie, what about you?
Vote. Your life may depend on it.
Mm-hmm.
I concur with Auntie. Go out and vote. It is very important. You know, there's so much at stake for us as African Americans, people as a whole. It's too much at stake for you not to vote.
Mm-hmm. And I'm just going to say this, that we've been given a voice, we've been given an opportunity, and we need to walk through these doors. We need to sit down at these seats, and we need to let our voice be heard. And the greatest way to let your voice be heard is to vote. So, ladies, I think that's some Black girl magic right there. What do you think?
Yes.
Four Black women in the Zoom room space talking politics. Now that's something I can get with.
That's
Auntie,
good.
Auntie, we love you. Sandy,
Yes.
I love you. Rhonda, I love you. Thank you all so much.
Thanks for allowing this old lady to come into your lives.
And we want you back in our lives some more. So thank you, ladies.
Look, ain't nothing old about her but her social security number.
That's right.
Go
The coins
rock your
on my
vote.
feet.
Go rock your vote.
Go rock
rock
your
your
vote.
vote.